nation's capital. This is a CNN town hall with Senators John McCain and Lindsey Graham. We want to welcome our viewers in the United States and around the world. I'm Dana Bash. Just 24 hours ago, President Trump stood before Congress and made the case for his presidential priorities. Now, two leading Republican senators will take this stage and take audience questions on issues facing the country. We've reviewed these questions to ensure that we cover a variety of important issues and perspectives. There is no subject that is off limits. Now, please welcome U.S. Senator John McCain from Arizona and U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina. Thank you for doing it. Thank you. Thank you, sir. And we're off.
Is this court-ordered community service? How did you get so many people here?
It's good to be on the most hated channel on television.
We're just hoping that you can keep that going. Senators, thank you so much for doing this. I want to start with you, Senator McCain.
Good.
About the address.
We're doing it by age, right?
Age. He said we're doing it by age.
I translate Senator Graham's remarks into English.
Senator
why.
Senator McCain, in all seriousness, President Trump went to Congress last night, and he laid out a really ambitious agenda that he'll need you and other Republicans to pass. What did you make of what he said?
Well, I think he laid out a positive agenda. Frankly, I think it was different from his inaugural address, and I think it was well received by the American people. I think that obviously his comments about our fallen hero were very moving to all of us. I would have liked to have heard about Afghanistan. We have 8,400 American troops in Afghanistan who are fighting in what has been described to me as a, quote, stalemate. I would have liked to have heard a lot more about Russia. Russia is the country that tried to change the elections in the United States. I don't think they succeeded. Right now, they're affecting or trying to affect the elections in March. They've dismembered Ukraine. They've invaded Georgia. The list goes on and on. Vladimir Putin is hell-bent on destruction of the European Union. So that I would have appreciated hearing the president's views on these pressing national security issues.
And you mentioned the moving moment where the president paid tribute to Navy SEAL Ryan Owens and his widow, Karen. Owens was killed in a raid in Yemen in January. And the president quoted Defense Secretary James Mattis, who said the raid generated large amounts of vital intelligence that will lead to future victories. Senator Graham, you said today that you thought the president needed to be careful not to oversell. What did you mean by that?
Well, number one, Ryan's a hero, don't you think? But anybody who's willing to do that is a hero. The outcome of the mission doesn't make you a hero. The fact that you're willing to go in and fight these bastards over there makes you a hero. I can promise you there have been a lot of raids in this war that were dry holes, that the enemy left an hour before we got there, and some of our guys were killed. To me, they're every bit the hero, not because of the outcome of what happened, because of the fact they would try. Here's what I would encourage the president to be careful of. Remember when we were told it's just a few dead-enders in Iraq? Remember when you were told, you know, ISIL's the JV team? Don't go down that road. I don't know if this was a game changer in the war on terrorism. In terms of Ryan, it doesn't matter one bit. He's a hero, so I'm sure the president's watching. You did really a good job last night. We need more of that guy and less of the tweeting guy. That guy can govern the country, but don't oversell. We'll see if this changed the course of the war. But whether it did or not, Ryan's a hero.
Let me just finally add to what Lindsey said. Missions succeed and fail. There's a thing called fog of war. But those who serve and sacrifice, that doesn't affect their courage and what they've done for our nation by putting themselves in harm's way. So somehow to equate a success or failure of a mission to the courage and sacrifice of those individuals who are involved in it, it's not a connection. Right. It's not a connection.
Are you saying that the president made that connection?
I'm saying that you do not. I do not make that connection. I can't speak for the president, but I do not make that connection. Let me just give you a best example I know. My friends, long ago, I was in a prison camp in North Vietnam, and there was an attempted raid on a camp in North Vietnam. Unfortunately, that camp had just been evacuated a couple of days before. But it was an incredible act. And when we heard about it, what do you think it did for our morale, that they were willing to come get us? The mission failed. But what those brave, they were Green Berets, as we called them that time, were willing to risk for us was one of the most wonderful things that had happened. So you can't ever deny the fact that we have these incredible men and women who are serving our country in uniform to keep the rest of us safe.
And I just want to stress, it's not about the outcome, it's about the effort. Sometimes missions don't work out. The enemy gets tipped off, on and on and on. I guess the point I'm trying to say, aren't you tired of being told things about war that don't pan out?
And finally, could I say, in the Vietnam War, 5 o'clock every afternoon, they used to have a thing called the 5 o'clock follies. And they would talk about body count, and they would talk about missions flown, and they would talk about all the great things that were happening. We weren't winning. So along comes the Tet Offensive, and the American people decided they'd had enough.
Senators, I want to get to some questions from the audience.
No.
No.
Okay, sit down.
Not this audience of commie
What are you going to do,
liberals.
cancel the show?
I want to start by bringing in Jamil Shah, who was President Trump's guest at his speech last night. His 17-year-old son was shot and killed in 2008 by an undocumented immigrant. Jamil.
Good evening. My son was a high school football star that was murdered by an illegal alien. He had everything going for himself. He was doing good, getting recruited by Stanford, Rutgers. He is not with us today because of the sanctuary city that protected someone who doesn't deserve protection. What will you do, senators, to make sure we end sanctuary cities? For example, in LA, where I am from, they won't comply with the plans to end sanctuary cities. What will you do to make them comply? What will you do to make this the law?
Senator McCain?
Obviously, I hope you'll accept the sympathy of all Americans for the loss of your son, and I cannot imagine what it would be like as a father of sons. So please accept our deep and profound sympathy. I happen to believe it's simple, and that is that when laws are passed, federal laws that apply to the United States of America, municipalities cannot exempt themselves. If we had a system of government that we pass certain laws and towns and cities sprinkled across the country decide, well, we're not going to obey that law, then obviously that would be in a breakdown of government. And so I would say that we ought to look at ways that would help convince these cities to observe federal law. And that may mean through how we use federal funds.
Well, sanctuary cities is a symptom of a greater problem. The best thing we could do to honor your son is to fix a broken immigration system. For 10 years, along with Senator McCain, I've been trying as hard as I know how to get it fixed rather than yelling about it. In our bill that got 68 votes in the Senate that died in the House, you get increased penalties if you come back into the country once you're deported. If you're a felon, you can never come back into the country. So all of us get it. Nobody wants the bad guys. Everybody wants to make sure that our laws are respected. There's a lady holed up in a church right now with 2 kids. Do you want her deported? I don't. What I want to do is keep the people who killed your son from ever coming back to our country, identify them and kick their ass out, and give that lady a chance to stay here by learning our language, paying taxes, and getting the back of the line. That's what I'm for.
And we can we can secure our borders. We can do it through technology and drones and towers and more border patrol. So we have to have a secure border. But until we have genuine immigration reform, which means that if you go to work and you don't have verification that you're in the country legally, and that employer hires that individual, then that employer pays a huge penalty for doing so. Secure the border, and we can have. I was glad last night that the President of the United States made reference to the need for immigration reform. We're all with him.
Senator McCain, Senator Graham mentioned deportation. I want to bring in another audience member, and it comes from Angel Reyes Garcia. His mother, Guadalupe, was deported in January after 21 years in the U.S. during a routine check-in with immigration officials. She's now the center of a high-profile immigration case. You know, in 2008, she was convicted of using a false Social Security number, but she had reported to ICE every year since. Angel and his sister, Jacqueline, attended President Trump's speech last night. They were guests of Democratic Arizona Congresswoman Ruben Gallego. Angel?
Yes. It's been 4 weeks since I watched my mother be deported, and now Trump is promising new agents to do that to other families. Do you individually and does your party support the new policies at DHS? And if not, what are you doing to help keep families from being separated?
Well, first of all, I believe that we have to understand that there's a category of people in this country who were brought to this country as children. And that was not their doing. They were brought to this country, and I think that those young people ought to have a chance to become citizens. And I believe that we should deport anyone who's committed a serious crime in the United States. And I do believe that when someone is killed, as this individual's son was, then that's wrong. So we have to have comprehensive immigration reform, which gives people a path to citizenship, but it's a long, hard, tough path. Pay back taxes, fines, get in line behind everybody else, but have an opportunity to become citizens of this country.
Senator Graham, can I just ask you, you both now have talked about comprehensive immigration reform. The president told news anchors yesterday that he is now open to...
That's what I said.
Yeah,
yeah,
but not... But not path to citizenship, legal status.
You know,
but can I just add one thing? But I just want to add one thing, because today a White House official characterized the president's remarks as, quote, a misdirection play. There's mixed messages. What do you make of that?
Well, he's going to...
Is this the first time there's been mixed messages? I'm shocked. Yeah. I'm shocked.
Yeah. Well, he's going to be judged by whether or not he can solve this problem. I think Donald Trump has an ability to solve the problem unlike anybody in recent times. We always pass a bill in the Senate like 68 votes. It goes to the House, my Republican colleagues in the House, it always dies. I think Trump has the ability to tell the right, you know, this is a good deal, take it. Here's what I think. Most Americans want the man who killed your son to be deported yesterday and never come back. I think most Americans want your mother not to have been deported. I can tell the difference between your mother and the person who killed his son. Don't you think most Americans can see that difference? So what Trump is doing is a good thing in terms of getting the bad hombres out. His mother is not a bad hombrette. So the bottom line here is that the Republican Party and the Democratic Party have a chance here to secure our border, control who gets a job, and tell the difference between a repeat offender, a rapist, a drug dealer, a bad hombre, and his mother. And finally, have you ever wondered why we're not being overrun by illegal Canadians? We got two borders, one with Canada, one with Mexico. I've never met an illegal Canadian. They may be out there. I'll go look for them. This is an economic issue. People come in from poor countries to work here. They come to Myrtle Beach. Canadians do. They enjoy themselves. They go swimming in March and they go home. We're glad to have them because nobody else swims in March.
4th of July 2005, Lindsey Graham, Joe Lieberman, our beloved third amigo, were asked by David Petraeus to preside at a reenlistment ceremony in Saddam Hussein, Saddam Hussein's old palace. 200 were reenlisting, and then there was 96 that were becoming citizens because green card holders who joined the military, you can have accelerated path to citizenship. We were asked to speak. We're sitting there in the front row are 2 empty seats with boots on them. I said to General Petraeus, I said, what is that? He said, those 2 were killed in the last 24 hours. My friends, they know what it means to be a citizen of the United States.
So I want to stay on this subject, a little bit of a variation, generally about the travel ban. I want to go to Asal Ravandi. Asal is an Iranian-American Army veteran who has a question for Senator Graham. Asal.
Senators, I was born in a Muslim country. My family and I, along with my brother, we immigrated to the United States as refugees over 2 decades ago. I'm also a combat veteran of the United States Army. My brother is a Navy combat veteran of the United States.
That's better.
Yes.
Maybe one day you'll have an Air Force person. Yeah.
Probably.
That's good.
The refugee we banned from coming to the United States today could potentially be tomorrow's service member, civil servant, or an influential member of our American society. How would you ensure that we do not hold America's potential hostage by banning certain individuals through new regulations?
And Senator Graham, as you answer that question, I should say that we're waiting for a revised travel ban from the president any day now.
And I'm told that Iraq will not be one of those 7 countries. That's vital, because the Iraqis now, we have Americans fighting in Iraq against ISIS, and we need the cooperation of the Iraqi government.
But Asal is Iranian-American.
Right.
And
yes.
Well, how about thanking you for your service? How about that?
Thank you.
There are 3,500 American Muslims in uniform. And every time you talk disparagingly of the faith, not only do you denigrate those fellow citizens who are trying to protect you, you make it impossible to have partners within the faith. You're never going to win this war by killing people. You need partners. And let me tell you who your partners are going to be. The vast majority of Muslims who do not want to turn their daughters over to ISIL. I've been to Iraq and Afghanistan 40 times, mostly with John, and I can tell you most people in the faith are not buying what these nut jobs are selling. So refugees can be infiltrated by terrorists. I don't blame the president for wanting more vetting in countries that are becoming failed states, but the executive order was a huge misstep because it was rolled out and it included everybody, including the girl who was a PhD student from Iran at Clemson. She was visiting her mother. Go Tigers. She was visiting her mother. They took her off the plane in Dubai. She graduated with a PhD in Clemson, is working in a startup company. The Iraq translator who braved the enemy to help our soldiers was detained 17 hours in an airport. Here's what I hope President understands. When you do something like this, if it's perceived as declaring war on the faith, we're all going to lose. If it's perceived as making us more safe and not a Muslim ban, we're all going to win. So I hope this new order understands the difference between threats abroad and the fact that Muslims not only are great patriotic Americans, they're the key to winning this war.
Senator McCain.
I thank you for your service, and I was especially interested in our interpreters. Our interpreters, my friends, who literally put their lives on the line to help us in the vital mission of translating between Iraqis and our members of the military. And again, to lump Iraq and Iran in the same category, I think, was a terrible mistake, and I'm glad the news seems to be that Iraq is not going to be part of those countries that are listed.
Senators, thank you. Hold those thoughts. Everybody in the audience, stand by. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more of CNN's Town Hall with Senators John McCain and Lindsey Graham.